What's up, my name is TechNubber here for Troubleshoot and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to optimize Windows 11 for the highest performance possible when playing games. Now of course this is currently the preview of Windows 10, it's not fully released, but this video will be very accurate for years to come. This video will cover tons of ground, so if you get confused, do make sure to return to this video if you feel like you need to take a break at any point. Anyways, let's quickly jump into it. Before we get to optimizing anything properly, there's a couple of things that we should do. The number one most important thing is making sure that Windows is the most up-to-date that it could possibly be. Because I'm running a Windows Insider build, there are going to be updates very often, so this is something you're going to do pretty often, especially if you're an early adopter of Windows 11. Otherwise, it's still worth checking for Windows updates at any stage in the future. Hit Start, click the Settings icon, and then head across to Windows Update at the very bottom. When you see this page over here, simply click Check for Updates and wait for it to finish. If any updates are found, make sure to install them and then restart your computer and return to this video as we'll be following through with steps from there. Making sure Windows is the most up-to-date it can be is one of the few most important steps towards a better running computer. Of course, for me, a couple of updates were found, so I'll let these finish and then restart my computer. Something Windows Update struggles with is downloading and installing the latest Nvidia or AMD drivers, so you need to go ahead and do this manually. In the description down below, you'll find links to both the Nvidia and AMD website where you can go ahead and download the latest driver available. I only have an Nvidia graphics card, so that's all I'll be showing you here. Clicking the Nvidia link will take you across to nvidia.com/enus GeForce drivers. On this page over here, simply make sure to click Download Now right under Automatic Driver Updates. This will download GeForce Experience, which you can then open up, install, and follow through with the on-screen instructions. You'll notice an Update button somewhere within the software. Simply just click that and your drivers will be updated to the latest version available. If you're on AMD, however, you'll be taken across to this page over here. Once again, simply click Download Now right under Auto Detect and Install, then simply follow through with the installation instructions, and you should be running the latest version of your graphics driver as well. This is something that's going to give you a huge performance increase, especially if you have a much older driver installed through Windows Update or simply none at all. And then finally, before we get to some serious optimization, it's a very good idea to uninstall software that you're not actively using, as we'll be cleaning up a lot of caches and things like that later. So getting this out of the way early is pretty important. Either head across to the Apps section on the left-hand side and then Apps and Features, then run through the list here and uninstall apps that you don't use. Note that apps and programs will be shown together over here. Unlike if you hit Start, type in Control and open up Control Panel, then head across to Uninstall a Program under Programs and you look at the programs here. These are only desktop programs and they don't include Windows apps like this screen over here. If you use the Windows App Store to download and install apps or games, you'll only find them in this Apps section of the Windows settings over here. So simply find software that you don't use anymore, click the button and simply click Uninstall, or if you're using this over here, right-click and then click Uninstall. Pretty simple. We're going to try and get rid of as much software that we don't actively use and software that's just left laying around. Try and avoid things that start with Microsoft and drivers that you know you had to install for certain software to work properly. Uninstalling all games and all software you don't touch anymore is a pretty good idea. Now that we got the basics out of the way, let's go ahead and optimize the Windows boot times. Simply open up Task Manager by hitting Ctrl, Shift, and Escape. Then inside of here, head across to the Startup tab at the very top. What we'll be looking for is everything that's enabled, so I usually sort by enabled. As you can see, most of the software here is disabled, but originally everything was turned on, meaning when we powered up our computer, every single bit of software on this list is started up before we can properly use our computer. This can cause a seriously slow computer at startup and of course increase the time required to start up fully. So it's a good idea to right-click software you don't want starting with your computer and then clicking Disable as such. Software that you actively use, such as say Steam, is fine to also disable, as when you want to use it, you'll click on the Steam icon on your desktop or your Start menu and Steam will fire up from there instead of at boot time when you may want to do something else on your computer. Having everything disabled here won't actually do anything harmful for the software. Just make sure that if you want to use the software, simply start it up later whenever you need it. Then we'll quickly get into audio settings and display settings before we continue with this optimization guide. Let's start with audio. In the bottom right, you'll find the speaker icon and probably your internet icon joined together, unlike in Windows 10 where they're separated. Right-click this and then click Sound Settings. You'll then be taken across to a screen that looks something like this. Simply scroll down to the very bottom and then click More Sound Settings. Inside of this new window over here, you'll probably notice tons of playback devices. Every device that you're not actively using, simply right-click and then click Disable. To make the list a bit cleaner, you can right-click and uncheck Show Disabled Devices and uncheck Show Disconnected Devices as well. My virtual machine over here doesn't have many, so I'll show you inside of Windows 10. This is something more what it would look like. Simply right-click everything on this list that you're not actively using and disable it. Then right-click and uncheck these boxes over here so that your list is nice and clean. I only have both of my speakers and my headphones, and then my virtual cable for my microphone. The same goes for the recording tab at the very top. Disable all of the devices that you're not actively using and only keep the ones that you are here. On the communications tab at the very top, I'd recommend selecting do nothing over here and clicking apply, as when you get a call or something that's detected as a call, such as Skype, it won't mess with any of the other volumes on your computer, unless of course you like this feature. Now, of course, something people like to do is lower the quality of their audio for the highest possible performance, but I would probably recommend against this, as I would much prefer some level of quality if I'm playing games and things like that. Squeezing out every last drop of FPS isn't really something that you should do when it comes to audio quality, as it doesn't use all that much processing power to begin with. If you're running a super old, low-performance computer, then it may be something you want to do. Right-click your audio hardware, either the playback device or the recording device, then click Properties. On the screen over here, head across to the Enhancements tab and check Disable All Enhancements unless you're using something like Equalizer APO, which I have a guide for in the description down below, which is a system-wide equalizer. I of course use this for my microphone and my headphones, so I leave this unchecked, but checking this should give you a little bit of extra performance. What I was talking about previously was on the Advanced tab at the very top. People like to come into this menu over here and drop it to the lowest possible quality for quote-unquote better FPS. I would recommend against this and not go anywhere below, say, 96,000 if your headphones actually go that high. Lowering the bitrate from 24 to 16 and the hertz will result in lower sound quality. Having this higher is something that I would much prefer over dropping it. Of course, depending on your audio hardware, you'll see something drastically different to this, sometimes going up to 192 kHz. If you see 192 followed by a bunch of zeros, then you don't really need to go that high. You can drop it to about 96 kHz. Having anything lower than this, or the maximum that your headphones or microphone can support, is probably just going to worsen your experience. At the very bottom, you may or may not want these two over here checked. I usually leave these unchecked unless you use software that you want to completely take over your headphones or your microphone and stop it being used elsewhere on your computer. Now, before you click OK or Apply, do keep in mind that if you're watching this video on the same computer that you're adjusting the settings on, you may lose all sound from your browser. Simply close your browser after bookmarking this page and come back to it to continue with this tutorial. If you're watching it on your phone or something like that, you don't need to worry about it. Simply click Apply and then OK. The same goes for your recording device. Right-click, Properties, Enhancements, off unless you're using Equalizer software, Advanced, and change the quality to the maximum available, or maybe somewhere around 96 kHz if yours goes that high. Now onto the display. Inside of the settings screen over here, head across to System, and then Display. We'll be touching on this again in a later video talking about optimizing your Nvidia graphics card settings. Now, because I'm on a virtual machine, I don't have the options available here, but what you want to do is set the scale to only 100% and set the display resolution as well as FPS or Hertz, which you should find inside of the options screen over here, to the maximum that's advertised for your monitor. This means that you'll be able to view the highest possible FPS in games, especially if you have a high refresh rate monitor, such as a 144Hz or 240Hz monitor. A lot of people forget about this and end up discovering this much later, hence I'm covering it here. Any games that you should be running in this resolution over here for the maximum performance available. So say 2560 by 1440 or 1920 by 1080, whatever is advertised here and whatever your screen is. If you really need to lower the resolution in games, make sure you lower the resolution scaling if available before the actual display resolution, as scaling inside of Windows can cause a performance drop. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get to optimizing our Windows power plan. Simply hit Start and then type in Power. We'll be opening up Edit Power Plan. We'll be opening up Choose a Power Plan. Inside of here, if you see this, simply click the button and you'll be able to customize the options here. You'll see Balanced, Power Saver, and under Additional, you'll likely see High Performance. Selecting High Performance uses more electricity, so if you're using a desktop, this isn't really something you need to worry about, especially if you care about performance. If you're on a laptop, you may want to keep it on Balanced or even Power Saver, but whenever you're playing games, you should change it to High Performance. And what would you do if I told you that there's something better than high performance that you can add here that's hidden away in Windows? Well, I wouldn't be lying. In the description down below, you'll find a line of text starting with powercfg. What do we do with this? Well, hit Start, Type in CMD, select Command Prompt, and then click Run as Administrator. Hit Yes when prompted for admin, and inside of this screen over here, simply paste in the command from the description down below. powercfg duplicate scheme followed by those numbers there. After doing that, you'll see Ultimate Performance, and if we head back to this window here and refresh it, you'll notice the Ultimate Performance plan here. Select this for the best possible performance. Now we'll get into customizing it. Click the Change Plan Settings button on the right, click this if you see it, and then choose when to turn off the display and set it to whatever you'd like. If you see something about sleep, you should set that to never, then click Change Advanced Power Settings right below it for this window over here. You'll see Hard Disk, turn off the hard disk after, and make sure it's set to never or set this to 0. Of course, you may have to click the button again to edit the settings here. After setting it to 0, clicking off it, you'll see it says never. Now, unlike the Windows 10 option, there doesn't seem to be something about limiting the CPU performance here. Opening up my Windows 10 one here, overlaid, you'll see Processor Power Management. If for some reason they add this in the future for Windows 11, make sure to set the minimum processor state to 100% and maximum to 100% as well. Then hit Apply, OK, and close out of the window as such. Now we're done with the power settings. Let's get into some more niche settings for Windows to optimize for the best gaming performance. Hit Start and open up the Settings window once again. Inside of here, we'll start on the System tab and we'll start on Display. At the very top, you'll see Nightlight. Unless you actively use this, set this to off. Then go back. We'll head into Notifications next. Simply make sure to turn this off at the very top and everything else should be grayed out. If you see Focus Assistant, then click in it and make sure that this is set to off as well. If during these times is turned on, make sure to turn this off as well so that this isn't turned on in the future. Then simply head back to the screen over here, the System screen, and then scroll down for Multitasking. Now this is something that's pushed heavily in Windows 10 as you can hover over the maximize button of any software and get the snapping regions over here. Something that people suggested and I would still suggest is turning off snap windows over here. By doing this, you'll lose the feature of hovering over this button over here, and if you drag windows to the side, they won't snap. Why do people say to turn this off? Well, if you're playing a game in the background, you tab out of it, and you accidentally move something to the side of the screen, this action over here of making it full screen, etc., could cause a drop in system performance. Of course, because this is something pushed so heavily by Windows 11, you'd probably want to leave it on and instead turn off some of the options down here, such as the one that I like to turn off, this first option over here. Basically, when you snap something, it'll show you what you can snap next to it as such. I usually turn this off so that when I snap something, I don't see that. It's just a personal preference, really. Anyways, enough of multitasking. Let's head back and scroll down to the very bottom where you'll see Remote Desktop. Open this up and simply turn this off unless you're someone who actively uses Remote Desktop on your computer. Awesome. Let's get to personalization. On the left-hand side, click the button, and under background, we'll make sure to set this background to either picture or solid color. Having a slideshow with rotating images will probably cause some performance drop, especially while playing games. We'll head back one screen and then open up the Colors tab. Inside of here, you'll likely want to turn off transparency effects for the best performance possible. Then we'll head back once again, and this time we'll head across to Apps. Inside of here, you'll see Offline Maps. Simply click on this and make sure to delete any maps if you have any downloaded onto your computer, unless you actively use them. If you see 0 downloaded, awesome, you can back out of the screen. Then we'll be heading into Apps for Websites. Down here, after clicking on it, you'll see a bunch of things like this. Simply just turn all of these off. Then head back once again. Head into the video playback section over here, and you'll likely want to change battery options from optimize for battery life to optimize for video quality. If you're using a screen with HDR and you'd like to watch videos with HDR, you may want to explore the HDR section here, which takes you back to display where you can enable or disable HDR, I'm assuming here, but of course I don't have an HDR ready screen. Let's get on to some gaming optimizations. On the gaming section on the left-hand side, you'll see 3 options. First, we'll open up the Xbox game bar and we'll be turning this off unless you actively use it. Then we'll be heading back, we'll head into Captures, and we'll make sure to turn this off as well by turning off Record What Happened. This is basically Windows' Shadowplay, and if you're using something like Shadowplay or AMD's equivalent, then this should definitely be off as well. After doing this, simply head back to the Gaming tab, and we'll head into Game Mode, but we'll make sure that this is turned on for the best performance possible. This has slowly been getting better and better with Windows as it progresses, so having it on nowadays will give you better FPS than having it off. Next, let's get into optimizing the privacy section of Windows 11. head across to privacy and security on the left-hand side, and you'll see a ton of options. Now, because I got this with the Windows Insider program, they do require you to have diagnostics and feedback turned on. So when you're going through these settings over here and turning off basically everything, make sure to leave diagnostics and feedback on, at least if you're using the Insider preview. You can, of course, turn it off if you'd like, as the switch is right there. Anyway, what you want to do is start from the top under Windows Permissions. We'll click on, say, General, and we'll be turning off most of the options here. I would, of course, suggest that you read them before turning them off, but turning things off is usually a good idea. Speech, of course, we should turn everything off. Inking, typing, and personalization off as well. Activity history will be clearing and then unchecking store my activity on this device, etc, etc. You get the point for all of these here. The same goes for app permissions at the very bottom here. We'll be going through each of these and turning absolutely everything off that we can. Simply, usually by using a master button in the top right, turning it off as such. Something like the camera and microphone, however, are things that you should probably keep on at least to some extent, because if you turn them off here, programs will lose access to them. You'll see something like this: let apps access your microphone, which I would recommend turning off, unless of course you're playing games through the Windows Store, in which case they'll show up on the list here. You may want to turn it on and instead turn off everything except for the games that you install through the Windows Store that actively use your microphone. What you'll want to do on the screen over here is, instead of turning this off, you need to go through the list and turn absolutely everything off, unless of course you use the microphone in that program, but make sure that you have let desktop apps access your microphone checked at the very bottom here, otherwise programs like Discord, Skype, etc. won't be able to hear you. You'll need to keep both of these on at the top and this on at the very bottom. We'll head back and do the exact same for the camera settings section over here, of course if you'd like programs to access your camera. If you don't have one or you wouldn't like them to, turn off all of the options here. Otherwise, turn it on, expand this over here after turning it on as well, and turn off everything except for the apps that you'd like the camera to be used in, such as desktop apps or of course apps through the Windows App Store. Awesome, now we've covered privacy and security. What next? Well, let's start optimizing and cleaning up Windows. First of all, let's adjust how it displays for the best possible performance. Hit Start and then type in Performance. We'll be opening up Adjust the Appearance and Performance of Windows. Inside of this screen over here, all we're going to do is click the Adjust for Best Performance button to uncheck everything and then click Custom. Then inside of here, we'll be checking Smooth Edges of Screen Fonts as well as Show Thumbnails instead of icons. We'll hit Apply and then head across to the Advanced tab at the very top. You'll see Processor Scheduling, set this to Programs, and then we see Virtual Memory. We'll be clicking Change here. So what exactly is the virtual memory? Well, basically the paging file or virtual memory is an overflow for when your PC runs out of RAM and programs still need to cache information in your RAM. If you don't have an overflow, Windows is likely to crash and lock up completely when you run out of RAM. Having an overflow file is very useful and highly recommended. This of course is empty for me as I'm using a virtual machine, but I'll open it up on my main computer now. This is Windows 10, though it looks very similar. What we'll be doing is unchecking Automatically Manage Paging File Size for all drives, and we'll be going through each of these on the list. We'll be setting it to No Paging File, and then clicking Set on the right-hand side over here for every single drive on this list. Then things can get a bit confusing. If you have an SSD, you should put the paging file on that drive. If you don't, it should be on a drive that your games aren't actively running on, and if you don't have multiple drives, you only have one drive to select obviously. You do need this file. Select whatever drive you'd find gives you the best performance that hopefully hasn't got games on it and hopefully is an SSD. Select it, then select System Managed Size, click Set, OK, OK once again, then Apply and OK out of the Performance Options window as such. Let's get into some registry optimization. Hold Start, press R, type in REGEDIT, and then hit Enter to open up Registry Editor. Inside of here, on the left-hand side, we'll be going through a couple of folders. We'll be expanding HKey Local Machine, Software, and then Microsoft over here. You'll see a huge list expands. Just make sure you're still under the Microsoft folder over here and scroll down to Windows NT. Expand Windows NT, then expand Current Version, which again leads to a huge list. Making sure we're still under Current Version, we'll scroll down and we'll look for Multimedia. Expand this and then click on the System Profile folder instead of expanding it. You should notice the contents of the right-hand side has now changed. What we'll do is we'll double click on Network Throttling Index, and inside of this new window over here, we'll be typing in 7Fs, making sure that we have hexadecimal selected on the right-hand side over here. So select everything, get rid of it, FFF, FFF, F, 7Fs. Then click OK. Open up system responsiveness, much like we did the previous one. Make sure to set it to hexadecimal as well, and then set the value to a symbol 0. Then click OK. On the left-hand side, once again, we'll be expanding the system profile that we previously clicked on. We'll expand tasks, and then we'll click on the games folder. Inside of here, you'll see a couple of different options. We'll double click on GPU priority and set this to 8 hexadecimal and click OK. We'll then open up priority and we'll set this to hexadecimal 6. OK once again. And finally, you'll see scheduling category. Double click on this and you'll see some text in here. We'll take out everything and type in a capital H, then IGH, high with a capital first H. Click OK, and we're basically done here. You can now close out of Registry Editor. From here, let's quickly clean up your PC. Hold Start, press R to bring up this same Run dialog box, and inside of here, type in %, temp %, and hit Enter. And inside of here, you can safely select everything with Ctrl A, and then simply hit Delete on your keyboard. If you get a pop-up saying you need administrator privileges, click Yes, and if you get a pop-up saying the file is in use, simply click Skip All, or tick the box that says Apply to All, and then click Skip. Files that are actively in use will come up with that screen, and it's safe to delete everything else inside of this folder over here. Next up, let's get to some disk cleanup. Hit Start, and type in disk, and then open up Disk Cleanup. We'll wait for it to finish, and pop up as such. What we'll do is select absolutely everything in here, unless of course you need to keep files in, say, the recycle bin, in which case you'd unselect that and make sure everything is set properly. Then click OK, delete files, and wait for this to run through to completion. It'll then go ahead and delete some unnecessary files left over on your computer, leading to the best possible performance. Once it's done, the window will simply vanish. We'll hit Start and type in Cleanup once again. We'll open it up. This time, we'll be making sure to click Clean Up System Files and then Yes when prompted for admin. Now, this of course can take some time to open. A good place to see it is in the Task Manager to make sure that it's still going, especially if this is the first time you're doing it since upgrading to Windows 10, as it'll let you clean up some of the leftover files from the process. There we go. Now that it's open, we can center it once again, and we're checking basically everything on this list over here. But once again, do make sure to leave recycle bin and things like that unchecked if you'd like to keep them. As you can see, previous Windows installations is taking up 22 gigs. This is the old Windows 10 installation because I upgraded to Windows 11. I'm happy to removing this, but note that once you do, you won't be able to roll back to Windows 10 if you upgraded to it. Click OK once you're happy, and then delete files, and once again wait for this to finish. This is going to take even longer, especially if it's deleting lots of files. There's the warning over there. I'll click Yes. Wow, that took an incredibly long time. Well, let's continue with this tutorial. To finish it off, let's quickly go through some third-party programs that you might find useful. First of all, the CPU Core Parking Manager. I'll open up my browser and head across to the link in the description down below. We'll go ahead and scroll down all the way to the very bottom until we see this here. We'll scroll up a little bit and you'll see this. Download QuickCPU x64 and 32. We'll download the 64-bit version. You'll then see an ad and the download will begin. We'll simply open it up when it's finished. Inside of the software, we'll be opening up a QuickCPU setup. You don't have to extract it first. Next, accept, next, next, and install. We'll hit yes here again, close out of the zip, and of course the installer, making sure that Launch QuickCPU is turned on. Then we'll click yes once again, and you'll see the window over here. Then at the very bottom, we'll be turning core parking to 100%, frequency scaling 100, turbo boost 100, and performance 100. If these sliders aren't at 100%, simply drag them up to 100 and then click Apply and OK. What exactly does this tool do? Well, Windows sometimes keeps some of your cores parked or basically reserved for itself, so this lets you change how much Windows can do that. By setting these all to 100, it means that you can use all of your processor. Awesome. From here, we can simply close out of it. Next up, if you haven't already, we'll be downloading and installing CCleaner, but if you don't like CCleaner, a good open source alternative is something like BleachBit. You'll find both of them linked down below. For this tutorial, I'll be downloading the more popular CCleaner, even though I personally prefer BleachBit. Heading across to the link in the description down below, we'll scroll down to where it says free and click the download text next to it. Then we'll wait for the download to finish and we'll click on it to open it up. We'll hit yes and close out of our browser. We'll then click customize and we'll make sure that everything here looks somewhat similar, and then more at the very bottom, make sure it looks something similar, and then finally install. Why would you want to click those more buttons? Well, sometimes there may be software like this hidden in the program. If you see optional offers like this, simply click decline and wait for the installation to finish. That is once again one of the reasons I prefer BleachBit over CCleaner. Anyway, I'll uncheck the View Release Notes button and open up CCleaner. Inside of here, we'll head across to the Custom Clean section, then we'll simply look for browsers that we actively use. What we want to do is make sure to uncheck cookies so that you stay logged into certain sessions, internet history if you'd like to keep that, download history, session if checked, and saved form information, passwords, and cards. Everything else in here is pretty much safe to clean. I usually only clean internet cache, last download location, and recently typed URLs. So yours will look something like this when you're done. Then we'll scroll down. Internet Explorer I don't use, but I still like to uncheck cookies and history at the very top there. Scrolling down to Windows Explorer, we can leave everything as is here. Same goes for System down here, unless of course you want to keep the contents of the recycle bin, in which case you'll be unchecking empty recycle bin here. Scrolling down, at the very bottom you have some optional options, but usually you'd like to keep these as off. At the very top, we have an Applications tab. Once again, you'd like to verify that everything in here you're comfortable cleaning and deleting. So for example, cleaning and deleting all the Bing News, Skype Metro apps, blah, blah, blah. Then we'll finally click Analyze. After it runs through everything, it'll tell us exactly how much it can actually save us. In total, it'll save me about 347 megs. To do so, simply click Run Cleaner in the bottom right, then Continue. After doing this, it'll run through all of the cleaning steps and remove all of the junk files from your computer. Awesome. From here, we can close out of it, and if you'd like to keep it, you can keep it. Otherwise, if you'd like to install it, you can do so as well now. Now, something else that I've seen a lot of people talk about, but I personally don't see that much of a difference with, is TimerResolution. Basically, it's a bit of software that you run that keeps your CPU running at the highest possible performance always while you're playing games. Then when you're done, you reopen it, and you make sure to set it back to the default, then close it. In the description down below, you'll find a link to TimerResolution. Now, of course, this isn't much of an official download page, but this is the one that basically everyone's using, filedropper.com/TimerResolution. Click download this file, enter the text inside the box over here, and click download now. Then wait for it to finish, and it'll be putting this on a place such as our desktop that's nice and easily accessible. We'll go ahead and right-click, run as administrator, yes when prompted, and all we have to do is simply click maximum over here. When we're done playing games, set this back to default. So basically, you open up the software, set it to maximum, minimize, and then play your game. When you're done, reopen the software through your start bar, and then simply set it back to default and close. I personally don't see that much of a difference, but for some people it can lead to a huge input latency reduction. Then a couple of other changes. Something you might want to do, especially if you're struggling with GPU power on your computer, i.e. your GPU's being maxed out and your CPU's not really being touched, you might want to open up software such as Discord, Steam, and other programs and try to disable hardware acceleration if it has any. Most commonly, it'll be Discord and Spotify. By doing so, you stop the process using as much of your GPU and instead it'll use slightly more CPU. If you're bottlenecked completely by your CPU, turning off hardware acceleration inside of other apps may not be something you want to do. It depends on what is maxing out while you're playing games. You can see by opening up a game and playing it, and if you'd like to get more FPS, look inside of your task manager, once again Control-Shift-Escape, head across to the Performance tab and check to see if your CPU or your graphics card is being maxed out over here. It's pretty easy to tell with a graph usually. Because this is a virtual machine, I don't have a graphics card listed here. So once again, turning off hardware acceleration in software leads to higher CPU usage, but lower GPU usage, which depending on your case, could be better or worse for you. That's up to you. Something that is all around good for you is disabling third-party overlays such as the Discord overlay, etc, etc. Usually it's as simple as opening up the settings, going across to user preferences or something like appearance, and then simply turning off the third-party overlay. It's that simple. You will no longer be able to see the overlay of your games. However, it usually leads to a large input latency reduction and often FPS increase. Something else that'll help you out, especially if you're only using hard disks in your computer, is defragging. Hit start and then type in DEFRAG. We'll be opening up defragment and optimize drives. Inside of here, you'll see all of your hard drives listed and of course your SSDs. Simply click on a drive and then click optimize. If you're someone like me with lots of drives in your computer, you'll likely see something similar to this. Simply click on any one of the drives, optimize, wait for it to finish, and then you should be done after you've cycled through all of the different hard drives and SSDs on your computer. What you'd want to do is start with optimizing your solid-state drives first, and then go across to your smallest hard disk, and then up to the biggest hard disk if you have multiple on your computer. Why? Well, simply because when you start optimizing one, it'll only do one at a time. and it is safe to play games while leaving this on in the background, though you should try and avoid running games at the same time as defragmenting if it's installed on the same disk that you're currently defragging. So once again, start by going through and optimizing all of your solid state drives as such, and then go through your hard disks and click optimize on them as such. Once you're done here, you're done defragging your computer and you've basically done all of the cleaning that you can at this point. What we'll do is we'll simply restart the computer. Hit start in the very bottom left, click the new power icon, and then simply click restart. Don't click shut down, as that may leave some things cached on your computer for a faster start up. So click restart and wait for it to finish. There we go, logging back into my computer. You'll see not much has changed, but it should have booted up quite a bit faster, especially if you disabled a bunch of programs in the Task Manager startup section, as we did earlier in this video. Before I end it off, there's the pop-up for CCleaner. You might want to disable that as well under startup, unless of course you've already uninstalled it. Startup, CCleaner, disable. Anyway, back on track. Something that you'd want to do before you go ahead and close out of this video is verify that Windows on your computer is set up properly and things are running as hoped for. What you should do is hit start and then open up Command Prompt by searching for CMD, selecting Command Prompt and then clicking Run as Administrator. Click Yes, and inside of here we'll be entering some commands. In the description down below, you'll find 2 of them. The first one we'll be running is sfc/scannow. By doing this, it'll run through all of the system files on your computer and verify them, making sure that things are installed properly and that they're working as intended. When this eventually completes, I'll cancel it with Ctrl+C, though you shouldn't necessarily do this. You'll be running DISM/online/cleanup-image/Restorehealth. This will once again run through all of your system files in a different manner and check them for different issues. SFC, scannow, and this DISM tool verify different parts of the Windows operating system, so by doing both of these, it's a very good idea, especially if you're experiencing random, unheard of Windows issues. Often a simple corrupted file or things like that will be solved by these tools. Once those both complete, you can close out of the command prompt window, and we're basically done here. In the description down below, in the future, you'll find a link to my Nvidia optimization guide for Windows 11. I'd highly recommend you check that out if you'd like to squeeze out even more FPS. But as for this video, we've optimized Windows as much as we can, and this video is extremely long as is anyway. You will need to watch that other video if you're using an Nvidia graphics card, and if you're using an AMD graphics card, you can still somewhat follow that video, though most of the settings might be different for you. Following that video as well will make sure that you get the absolute maximum FPS that you can out of your computer. But anyways, that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching. My name's been TechNob here for Troubleshoot. Welcome to Windows 11, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao!